Right, Jake, what is tip number 2, please?
Okay, so tip number 2 is to reduce clutter from everything students see and hear.
Oh, this is right up my street. Right, tell me more about this.
So it's more on the visual side of things, but more recently I've actually been really reducing the amount I say in lessons, particularly with worked examples, the whole silent teacher kind of idea there. I go into, starting on the visual side of it, so what students see. I find myself cringing a lot when I see other teachers teaching sometimes, because they've opened up an exam paper, they're kind of trying to annotate over the top, and they've opened it up in Acrobat, and you've got all these toolbars on the right hand side. There's a big button that says edit PDF, combine files. There are like multiple toolbars at the top. You've got the Windows taskbar at the bottom as well. And as a result, everything's a little bit smaller, and the kids might be reading these other things as well. And I just think, why do we do that? Why are we wasting all this space? Or the other thing is, quite often, if something's made by someone else in the school, there'll be like a school logo on it, plus the school. These 3 words: aspire and communicate. Whatever it is that your school chooses are the 3 words that they care about. And why does that have to be on the board every time I'm teaching something? I want them to focus on fractions right now. I don't want them to care about all these other distractions. So I think we really want to just reduce what they see and to what's important here. And the other thing is, with the audio as well, just really trying to reduce. It's something that I'm really focusing on at the moment, is reducing the amount that I say in class. So anytime I open my mouth, I'm thinking, do I need to say this? Do I need to say it for the whole class? Can I do some kind of a gesture instead with my hands or my eyes? Can I go up to an individual student and just sort of, point at their book? So just reducing the clutter from lessons.
Oh, this is a brilliant one, right? As I say, right up my street for this one. So I'm all completely with you with these. Particularly if you download someone's PowerPoint either off Tez or Joe Morgan's site or something like that, often they're branded, right? So you get the logo of, as you say, the school or whatever, and it's normally like a slide master on a PowerPoint, and it's worth going to that effort to get rid of that, to either just copy it and paste it into a blank PowerPoint or something like that, because, as you say, best case, kids are going to ignore it. But worst case, they're going to pay attention to it or have to divert attention to effortfully ignore it. And that's not going to be conducive to learning. Yeah. So I'm all over it there. So first, do you know there's a name for it?
I mean, it's all about cognitive load.
Of course it is.
They've got that limited working memory. Any attention they give to anything else, if they're attending to something that isn't what you want them to teach, then
absolutely.
Yeah, you've lost a bit.
Now, you'll be loving this. There's a name for this, right? There's 2 names. First, in cognitive load theory literature, the redundancy effect is where you've got redundant information that you have to like effortfully ignore. But there's actually a really good name for this whenever you've got something that the teacher includes designed to kind of engage. So you get things like where you'll add a little bit of clip art just to spice up your PowerPoint a little bit, or a little GIF or something like that. And it's called the seductive details effect. And it's really problematic because teachers put them in there to, seduce and engage the kids, but they engage the kids away from, thinking about, as you say, fractions or something like that. Let me ask you this though. I see a lot of schools where you have to have on each slide, like learning objectives visible. Sometimes they're down the left-hand side of the PowerPoint, or by default, the date is always visible on every slide of the PowerPoint, or perhaps along the bottom, keywords for the lesson are on every flipping slide. Well, what's your take on them? Would they?
Yeah, so we have this sort of MYP program thing coming into the school. So we're meant to put an inquiry prompt, visible for students at all times. So I will put that on the physical whiteboard rather than the virtual one, and sort of maybe sometimes accidentally forget to do that. But yeah, it just takes up space. It just takes up the space on the slides, and I don't want them to see that. So
and I think I
try as much as possible not to.
I think there's another argument here, Jake, as well, that let's take learning objectives is a good one. I mean, we can debate whether they're a waste of time, just generally is another matter. But if you have them on every slide, it reduces their impact. Like, kids can't be thinking about them all the time. Whereas what you want to do, if you want to use learning objectives, what you want to do is you want to draw kids' attention to when they're relevant. So if they're always visible,
So that's what I do. Yes, I will have a slide that says, and today the big question is ... and I get them all really, kind of anticipating. And then, the next slide is just those words, or maybe I don't even put a slide up. I just say the words out loud to them, what the inquiry is that lesson.
Yeah, or
you want them to pay attention in that moment.
Exactly. Or then, halfway through the lesson, call back to it. Like, now let's revisit that big question, because now it becomes relevant. But if it's there all the time, it's a bit counterintuitive, but it's not relevant at all. PDFs is an interesting one. Just I mean, I've been guilty of this as well, right? You get an exam paper as a PDF, you just double click it, crack it open, and away you go. And as you say, it is redundancy central. What do you do with PDFs then, like exam papers? Do you just chop them up and put them on PowerPoint slides? Or?
Yeah, all of my lessons are monster PowerPoint files, basically. So I'll have every half term for each class, I'll have one massive PowerPoint file until it gets too big to open, then I'll create another one, and I'll take that PDF and I'll just keep on taking screenshots with Windows Shift S and pasting them into new slides until I've got everything I want in there.
So sorry, you've not just a PowerPoint per topic, a PowerPoint per class. Would that be right?
Well, no, per half term. Whoa. So a PowerPoint slide will get to about 300 pages probably, and then I'll be like, okay, that's enough for the slow computers at school. It's fine at home, but if it's taking me too long to open, let's go to another PowerPoint file.
What's the logic against starting a new PowerPoint per topic? How come it's you do a big?
Yeah, so it might be. I mean, it might be per topic, right?
Okay.
So if it's every half term, will roughly be one or two topics. So it is roughly that. It is roughly.
I like this. Now let's just go on to the verbal side of things. I think this is a big one. This took me many years to kind of cut down the amount I say. I'd always say things one way, then just keep saying them different ways, and I just never shut up. As a relatively new teacher, Jake, how do you find you do this? Because it feels to me like it's something that just comes with experience, that you learn you need to say less. How practically, you say it's something you're working on. How are you working on it? How are you reducing what you say?
Okay, so for the starters, it's very much, I've got a format for the starters. They've got 6 questions. In fact, I'll talk about, for number 5, what those 6 questions are for my starters. And they know that when they come in, they're coming in silence. But I also try just not to speak myself as well. So I'm not going around the room. Now, I know lots of people say, you want to go around the room and say, well done for getting your pen out, well done for doing this. But I don't do that, because I think my silence helps them concentrate as well. So that's one place where I don't talk. The other one is, starting off from your book. So when I first thought about being a teacher, first thing my brother said was to buy the blue Craig Barton book.
I like the sound
of it.
of him.
And started learning about worked examples and all of that. All very good, Craig. And more recently, the shorter book by Michael Ferson on teaching math with examples, which looks remarkably like your book.
Yeah, the lawyers will be in touch there. Don't worry about
that. But some specific things from there to how I do my worked examples now. So for my worked examples, how do I do them? I do them by preparing them in advance, like 5 or 6 PowerPoint slides. You've got the question, and I tell the whole class, we're going to do a worked example. Put your pens down, look at the board, and they know it's going to be silent. They know I'm going to be silent. They know they're going to be silent. And the whole process of going through a worked example probably takes about 5 minutes until it's their turn to start talking to each other. So that's definitely a period where we have silence in the class, including myself.
Oh, that's interesting. And do you, just to dig into this just a little bit further, with your worked examples, are you annotating all the PowerPoints, or are you handwriting the kind of working out bit?
Yeah, so I do all my preparation at home. I can't work on a school computer because they're too slow to prepare my lessons. But at home, I've got a Surface Pro with a big screen as well, and I will pre-prepare them all as PowerPoint slides, where the question itself is done with text in the document, and then I will handwrite the work solutions either as one step or multiple steps and put those in the PowerPoint file. So that is all done in advance of the lesson. I'm not doing that live in the lesson. I've thought very carefully about how I want to present it, and then they've all got a printed copy of that worked example with the your turn question on as well.
It's really
which
interesting.
They do after we've gone through it.
Really interesting. Just final thing on this, I saw Christopher Such, who has been a guest on this show. He's a primary English reading specialist. He bangs out these micro tips on Twitter, and I just saw this just yesterday, so I just wanted to kind of get it on record, and this feels like a great time to do it, Jake. He had a really good tip about explaining things during worked examples. He says that as teachers, we'll think through like a really careful explanation, and we'll say it, and then if the kids don't fully get it, or whatever doesn't seem to work, what we'll do is try and think of a different way to say it in a different way. Whereas what Chris says is maybe just say the same thing again. Like if you've thought of a really good explanation, kids might just need to hear it 2 times or 3 times before it really sinks home, as opposed to keep trying to come out with this, potentially inferior explanations of different ways of saying it. And I thought that was just quite a nice tip, so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and I think also to maybe explain less, right? The whole idea is they're going to learn more. I'm assuming this is the case from research and stuff. It seems to be the case from my lessons. They're going to learn more by self-explaining it. So, in my worked examples, I skip out some steps. I don't write down parts of my working because I want them to figure that out. And I do prompt them, why did I write a number 4 over here? Where did this come from? Why did this not happen here? But yes, sometimes it's the bits that you omit that helps them actually think a little bit more about what is really happening.
Absolutely. That's lovely.
Yeah, rather than explaining it in 5-6 different ways. Thanks, Craig. So I'm going to show you some of the features that enable you to reduce the amount of clutter on your screen using mathsuniverse.com/whiteboard. So that's the web address I'm at here at the moment. Firstly, what are you looking at here? So you're looking at the 2 screens that I have open. The big one, that's what the kids are going to see on the whiteboard at the front of the room. I want all the clutter to be taken off there as much as possible. In the bottom left corner, that's my computer's desktop screen. And on that one, I've currently got a PowerPoint file open. Now, normally you'd go into slideshow mode, but it's not so easy to annotate over the top of that as it would be if you use mathsuniverse.com/whiteboard instead. So if you go to the web address, you've got lots of information there and other videos you can watch as well. We're going to choose a room code. Doesn't really matter what we choose here because we're doing everything locally in this case. Although, as you'll see on other tips, you can add in a tablet or a phone as well to do other things. Okay, so we're starting off with a blank board. Now I just tap into that and it makes it full screen. So that gets rid of a lot of clutter that the kids see. And instantly I can start drawing on top of there. So you can see I can just start drawing stuff, and there's no interface at all at the moment. If I double tap with 2 fingers, it shows and hides a small interface which enables me to change color pens. But actually I can move 2 fingers in different directions to do the same thing. So here I'm just moving fingers in different directions, for example, to clear the screen, for example, to undo to bring everything back, or very quickly to switch between 2 color pens as well. And I'll show you more of that in just a moment. Now, the kids, you want to use your PowerPoint file so the kids can see the PowerPoint file. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this button in the bottom right corner that has a picture of a laptop. If we click that, like in Microsoft Teams, when you're in a meeting, we can share either our entire screen, a window, or even a Chrome tab. So maybe you've got a Desmos open, you want to annotate over the top of Desmos, that's also an option there. In this case, I want to share my PowerPoint window, and I'm going to hit the share button. And I'm just going to click the hide button on there. Now that's brought in the whole PowerPoint, so I can annotate over the top of that. You'll notice it doesn't actually edit the PowerPoint file at all. Again, we can hide my interface just by double tapping to go into Zen mode or out of Zen mode. So we've got the PowerPoint file here, and we can navigate within the PowerPoint file in the normal way, but we don't want the kids to see all this stuff around the side of the screen. So I'm going to use the cropping tool, which is the button just above the laptop button in the bottom right corner. And then I'm going to click on the area I want to crop to. So I'm going to click on the top left corner of that, and I'm going to click on the bottom right corner of that. And it crops it down to just that part of the screen. So I'm just going to show you that feature once more. I'm going to go on the crop screen. Let's say I just wanted, for some strange reason, to show the kids the toolbar at the top. We could crop it down to there. But in my case, I want to crop it down to just that visible part without the thumbnails and the menu at the top and the bottom. So now we've got the PowerPoint file, which is still open. So we can still edit that PowerPoint file in its normal way. It's still in edit mode, but we've just cropped it down to the part of the screen that we want the kids to see. And I can annotate over the top of here in my normal way. Now, if I forget what the gestures are to do things without the menu showing, so like I say, we can easily change between colors by simply going down with 2 fingers, and we're going between 2 colors, or we can go down on the left and choose a 3rd color as well there, or we can go down to the right and we can switch to a highlighter, up to the right and switch to a different color highlighter. Now, if we forget any of that, well, we can always use the buttons on the left-hand side instead to switch between colors, or we can pull down with 2 fingers and it shows us a gesture wheel. Now that's really just if you don't know where the different gestures are, you can pull down and show that gesture wheel with those 2 fingers. There's also quite a cool feature as well, which is play. We can go right with 2 fingers, and it's actually going to go and replay all of the keystrokes that we've done. Again, we can jump around in our PowerPoint file. Now, if we're using page up and down buttons, it's going to clear all the gestures that we've done in the meantime. But you can see you've got a really clear screen here. We can really get rid of the interface completely and have the kids focus on exactly what we want them to see, which is, in my case, the maths, although you may be teaching a different subject as well. If you want to have a timer or something, you can get a really nice timer in that top corner where it's counting up anyway, which you might find useful. So that is a little bit about how you can use mathsuniverse.com/whiteboard to reduce the clutter from the screen that the kids see in your lessons.